Hi, everyone. I am trying to figure out if people are still trickling in, but looks like we have quite a few. So I'll just get started, given that it's a little bit past the hour. Thanks so much for joining me today for our waitlist strategies webinar. Um, a little bit about me. I'm Emily Lammers. I have had multiple leadership roles at large investment management firms over the past decade. Probably more relevant to you all, I'm also a Haas MBA um, class of 2015, and I've been coaching almost since I graduated from Haas. So almost a decade now. Absolutely love this work. And I've been with Leland actually since about the beginning as well. So love having this platform and this forum to um, work with you all and share kind of my knowledge that I've accumulated over the past several years. Here's what we'll be covering today. Why me? Nuts and bolts, areas for potential improvement, crafting the all-important updates, a few things to be aware of, and then we can do a quick Q&A. So why me? I'm sure a lot of you are feeling this way right now. You just spent so much time and effort, months crafting these essays, thinking about your story, perfecting your resume. I mean, so much goes into this process, as I'm sure you know, that getting put on the wait list elicits a lot of emotions. And I just thought it would be nice to level set on like why are people waitlisted? Why can't they just make a decision? And there's kind of like two buckets. A lot of folks are waitlisted because there is a clear weakness, something like your GRE or GMAT scores. Maybe your GPA is low. Maybe you don't currently have a job. There could be like a major weakness, and if you're in that bucket, you probably know about it. So that is one camp. The other, you might not have like a particular weakness, and simply what's going on is these programs are waiting to see who other people in your kind of your demographic or your gender, your industry, your role, people like you, how competitive are they? They want to compare you against other folks like you to ultimately make a diverse class. So that's kind of the more frustrating. Well, it's all frustrating, but those are two of the major reasons why people get waitlisted. And I would just note that like over the last few years, we've been seeing more and more applicants be waitlisted. This kind of is a trend in the MBA space. I think part of it is the higher volume of applicants. Last year was a super competitive year, and this year, unfortunately, is turning out to be much of the same. So these programs can just be choosier, and they know it. And then all these schools are all focused on their yield as well. They want to admit people who are going to attend their program and drive up their yield numbers, which goes into their rankings. So, by putting people on the wait list, they have a chance to kind of learn more about, which candidates really want to come, are they a first choice for a lot of these candidates? And they can kind of try to engineer their yield to be higher using the wait list. So that's a little background on the wait list and kind of the trends and the reasons why. But I'm going to end with there are still reasons to be optimistic on the wait list. Like, it's probably annoying to hear, but like you are on the wait list because they see something in your application that's interesting. They're not quite ready to make a decision, but they like you. So that's a reason to be optimistic. And the other reason to be optimistic is there are things you can do. And that's what we're going to spend a lot of our time discussing today. So just some basics before we launch into all those things. I think it's helpful, like after you've kind of had these emotions about like, why was I placed on the wait list? I'm so frustrated. I think it can be really instructive to just take a minute to decide whether you even want to pursue the wait list. I think the gut reaction is usually like, yes, of course, like, I want to keep going and see if I can get in. But I think it's just a good use of time to consider your options. I mean, did you get into other schools? How do you feel about those schools and then your fit there? Are you willing to, go through potentially months and months and months of uncertainty to pursue the wait list at a certain school? I've had several clients actually who, well, like one of my round one clients this year was put on two wait lists, got into one school, which was the lowest ranked of all of them. And he was like, I feel like the school I got into is the best fit for me. I'm going to have a great experience there. And I'm not going to pursue the wait list. And like that is a great outcome for him. I had someone last year also waitlist Kellogg, number one school he wanted to go to. And, when push came to shove, he's like, I'm just going to go to Tuck. Like, I feel really good about it there. So I just like, I'd have that conversation with yourself and try to consider the big picture about whether, how are the other options you have, and not just focus on the rankings, because I know the rankings can be a really big focus for a lot of people. Okay, with that pep talk, most of you are probably here because you are pursuing the waitlist, and you have probably already received some correspondence from the schools. So, hopefully you kind of already acted on the second bucket here, but read and follow all the instructions from the schools. This is like the number one rule in waitlist strategy. Most of these programs are really clear in what they will accept, how they want you to engage with them. If they do have a waitlist manager, you probably should have heard from the waitlist manager at this point. They will say, we will accept one update, or they kind of leave the door open. We will accept multiple updates or additional letters. But, following those instructions and not thinking, I'm so special, these rules don't apply to me, and I'm going to go, try to make the case for myself outside of what they allow. That is the worst possible thing you can do. So, you know, sometimes doing less or doing nothing is actually doing something. So just want to reiterate to, follow the guidance that they've given and don't make yourself stand out in a bad way. Okay. Moving on to, actual waitlist strategy. I think when you are kicking off this process, it's really important to take a step back. Like if you are not in the kind of this first bucket, potential areas for improvement with test scores and quant readiness, but maybe trying to figure out where you could be a little stronger, it's really helpful to have a partner in doing this. I think after months and months, like working on your applications, it's hard to be objective. It's also hard to be objective when you're evaluating yourself. So would really recommend as you're, figuring out your waitlist strategy to get a fresh set of eyes. Obviously, as a coach, I do this for a lot of my clients. Sometimes a coworker or family member can help too. But really taking a look at all aspects of your application. So, and then thinking about like, what are some things I could potentially do to improve my standing or improve in these areas to make myself a more attractive candidate compared to other people on the wait list. So we talked about test scores and quant readiness a little bit. Obviously, that's a big one. If you are weak in that area, retaking GMAT or GRE can, certainly help you. I have seen many people though that are like maxed out on that. They've taken it 3, 4, 5 times, kind of stagnated, or just like don't don't have the stomach to take it again after this very long process, all of which I understand. So, you know, I would always say, like, if you have the ability to, you think you can do better, would 100% recommend taking the test again. But kind of another alternative, if you've maxed out on test taking, is to take a pre-MBA math class. There are several out there. I wouldn't say it like offsets a lower test score, but certainly shows that you are aware of weaknesses in your application. You are prepping yourself for an MBA curriculum, and you want to show that you're addressing this area of your candidacy. And then, you know, the you ideally want a course with a grade, or midterm and final. So those are things you can share with the admissions committee to show them not only have you taken it, but here's how you've done. Secondly, you know, a lot of busy working professionals are a little light on the extracurricular community involvement side, which kind of anecdotally, I feel like is more important than it used to be, in evaluating candidates. That's a hard one to really remedy in, you know, a month or two when you're trying to get your update to the admissions committee for the wait list. But you know, if there is like one activity you're involved with, is there more you can do? Like, can you really dig into that activity to have something to say? Can you get involved with business resource groups at work? Just, you know, even small things are better than nothing. So that's another area to think about. And kind of in tandem with that, you can also think about, like, what would you want to be involved with at the programs you're on the wait list for? A lot of these programs have, excuse me, contribution essays. How would you be involved? Like Wharton and Fuqua have these contribution essays, but not all schools do. So if you're on a wait list for a school that doesn't, like, that's something to think about, demonstrating how you would be involved and add value to the program, even if you don't have a ton of extracurriculars and community work in your post-collegiate life. Professional achievements. This is always a nice one to have if you do have meaty things to report. You know, promotions, new projects at work, you know, new mentoring younger professionals at work. Anything that, you know, just think about what you've done since you applied, and what would be worth noting for an admissions committee. Um, Another one kind of in the professional realm that a lot of folks don't think about, you know, most of these schools have career essay goals. You know, a lot of people want to pivot to a new industry or new function, hopefully have like some track record and, you know, some foundation in wanting to make that pivot. But something that I've seen work really well for clients on the wait list that may be wanting to pivot is showing that they are working on that in the time since they submitted their application to providing a waitlist update. So, you know, whether it's getting involved with like an industry group or attending a conference or pursuing a certification, networking in that space, just showing that you're already taking steps to pursue these goals that you talked about so passionately in your career essays it can be really really compelling to the admissions committee. Next is love of school. You know, I would say, like, there's a real range of programs, and let's say the very top programs just kind of assume people want to go there, so they're less interested in your love of school. The rest of the programs in the top 20, I have always thought, really like to hear how much you've engaged with the program. Have you talked to people? Have you, talked to alumni, current students, done coffee chat, visited the campus, sat in on classes? Like, do you know exactly like how you're going to be involved when you get on campus? Um, this is really what can move the dial on a wait list for a lot of schools. That again, it comes back to yield. Is this person going to attend if we let them off the wait list? Um, and again, some applications have, provide you with the opportunity to really convey that. Maybe you were able to convey that in the interview, but in this bucket, there's kind of like always more that can be done. So does it feel a little bit ridiculous to continue networking um, with your desired program after you've applied and been put on the wait list? I concur. It feels a little ridiculous sometimes, but you are, if you are pursuing the wait list, you really want to make it clear that you are willing to go above and beyond and keep engaging with the program and keep understanding it better. So that is a huge one for a lot of these programs that, especially the ones that will let you submit multiple updates or additional materials. Um, sorry, I've had a dreaded 3-week cold, so I am doing the best I can with my throat. Um, Lastly, personal interests. This isn't nearly as important as the other ones, I would say, but um, some of these applications, I'm hating on Wharton a little bit, but like some of these less creative um, applications don't really allow you to show your personality so much. They don't have creative essays. So I always think like, you know, when you look at your application materials, do you feel like they really captured kind of who you are and your personality and what you might be like as a part of this school's class? That can be something also to think about as you're crafting your update. Um, which is a great segue into the next topic of once you've kind of done this analysis with a coach or a trusted partner, and it's time to start thinking about actually, you know, doing these items that I just talked about, the ones that make sense for you, and then crafting the update. Um, Again, number one rule is following the program's guidance. Do they only allow one? When is it? Or do they allow many? If they allow more than one, the second rule is always quality over quantity. You don't want to send them any sort of updates that are just kind of nothing burgers. Like it's just going to be more irritating than adding value to your candidacy. So, I would say, even though I'm sure a lot of people, been on the wait list, done a couple of things to enhance their candidacy, want to get that update over as fast as they can, like make sure it's a nice, meaty update with some real tangible things um, that will always uh, reflect better than, oh, I got, here's my midterm score from this class, or oh, I just started this new project at work, or just spamming them is not the preferred strategy here. Another thing, and I was kind of speaking about this earlier, and the different things you could do to improve your candidacy, but consider highlighting the strengths of yours that the app did not cater to. So whether that's a cultural fit with the school, your community involvement, kind of your personal story. Hopefully teamwork was highlighted in your application, but I'm going to hit on that one about these creative ways to do things in a minute. So again, like taking a look at all your materials, what what did you feel like you didn't have the opportunity for the school to necessarily highlight? And then the last, if you are dealing with one of these programs that welcomes more updates, isn't as prescriptive in what type of update it needs to be. Um, I've seen a lot of like kind of creative ways to give updates, which have worked. So things like listicles, limericks, collages, like photo collages, video updates. I know this, there are probably some eyes rolling here. But some of these have, if they feel authentic to you and are a good way to convey the information you want to convey, can really break up what must be like a pretty tedious job for some of these AdCom members as they're going through all this additional material. And the teamwork thing that I wanted to circle back with, I had a client on the waitlist at Sloan last year, and for his update, he wrote a letter, which is kind of the standard format. But the letter was reflecting about Sloan's application and how it felt like it was so focused on him as an individual. He's like, I just use I so many times. Again, what you usually do when you're writing MBA essays. But he wanted to highlight how he was actually a huge team player. He was an enterprise sales guy at a SaaS company. And in addition to all, his update letter, he had snapshots of all these different people that he had worked with at his company, describing what it was like to work with Michael. And that was like a really interesting and creative way to highlight one of his strengths that wasn't really catered to by Sloan's application. So there's just one example for you. Other considerations and things to be aware of. So as I've mentioned before, a lot of these schools will say if they offer or if they'll let you have additional letters of support. If they say they won't, or if they say they won't, usually you should follow that. I have almost always in parentheses because if you know someone in admissions or like someone who's a major donor to the school, there are these 0.5% of situations where you might know someone where it would be appropriate for them to write a additional letter of support. But in most cases, again, golden rule, follow the guidance. And then, if you are able to provide additional letters, they do allow that. What I would say to that is, again, quality over quantity. And whatever additional letters you provide, they need to add value. This person needs to know you. And again, be able to speak to your strengths and what it's like to work with you. Same criteria for a letter of recommendation. And any additional letters should also provide some new perspective, maybe it's from a community organization you work with, or maybe it's from someone at work who's in a different function than your recommenders. But it should be something that's different than what they probably have seen from your actual letters of recommendation. Another thing to be aware of, and I put this on kind of with one school in mind, Columbia Business School, because they have been known to do this. But some schools will call you just to check in, but really they're trying to suss out where are they on your priority list and are you going to attend? So while this is not something you should bank on happening, it is something you should 100% be prepared for. Just knowing your your points on why this school absolutely cold, and also thinking through kind of like how you would answer if kind of pressed, like, where's the school on your um, priority list? Is this your top school? Um, some of these programs, again, Columbia specifically, have gotten like pretty brazen in their approach to engaging with waitlisted students. Um, and I would also note that sometimes they'll reach out to you to schedule a call, so it won't always be like an unscheduled call. But same thing for prepping for those interactions. And then lastly, just thinking through your timeline and priorities when you're writing your update. So it can be really, I don't know, stressful, challenging to um, navigate the different wait lists you might be on, or the programs you've been accepted to, if you're need to put a deposit down. Um, and some of these schools will ask for in their update, like they'll ask about this. Like, Kellogg says, feel free to share any deposit deadlines you might have. Um, and also share kind of like where we are in your ranking of considering schools. Um, so, you know, I would say always share that information if it's going to benefit you. If you're like, yes, this program is my number one place, I'm willing to stay on the wait list as long as it takes. But I also have to put down a deposit in April 16th, whatever. Never hurts to share that information just so they have it and can factor it into their decision making. But on the flip side, like, you can't expect them to necessarily make a decision based on your unique personal timeline, unfortunately. Um, yeah, so I think I've gotten through most of my prepared remarks. Um, I did want to touch on just, ending with the timelines. I think one of the frustrating things about the wait list is there isn't a hard timeline. So, um, just I was kind of going back through my emails over the years and when people got in, like usually there um, is some movement in wait lists, like end of April, May sometimes. All these schools have slightly different policies on how they approach the wait list when they re-review waitlisted applicants. But usually it does take quite a few months. Um, I would say, you know, for the most part, you should know by July, although there are always a few just completely crazy cases where, um, someone is admitted off the wait list like 3 days before classes begin. Or I've never had anyone like that, but I've certainly had coaching friends who have had that happen. And again, like this comes back to your personal decision, like your personal framework, like how long are you willing to wait this out? When are you going to make a decision um, on other programs you might be admitted to? Just kind of thinking through these different scenarios. So, you know, you're not in limbo right up until you have to like uproot your life and move somewhere unless you know that you want to be. So, um, lots of open-ended questions, lots of um, uncertainty when it comes to the wait list. But again, it is not a terrible place to be. Tons of people get in off the wait list every year, especially when there are so many people put on the wait list in the first place. Um, and I would just say, be proactive about it, and within the guidance of what your program is telling you. All right, I just did a huge wrap up. So now I'll open it up to questions. Okay. If anything comes up in these last few minutes, feel free to drop it in the chat. Amanda, do we have the last slide? Cool. So yeah, Amanda kindly shared my information in the chat to my coaching page. You can also use this QR code here, and I am offering 15% off of hourly coaching for this week only. And yeah, we finally got a question, and it's one of my favorites. Uh, so NYU Stern waitlist is a great waitlist to be on because it is one of the ones where I feel like they're inviting you to try to get off the waitlist. Um, I actually had probably one of my best waitlist experiences last year with a client who was on the Stern waitlist for 6 months. um, and we came up with a very specific strategy for her, kind of going through um, the areas of improvement. You know, she took a course, she worked on progressing towards her career goals that she wrote about. She got promoted at work and took on some new responsibilities, and sent in a couple of media updates because they don't limit that. um, Ultimately was invited to interview, and then like a month after that got it off the wait list. So, you know, I would say with Stern, love of school, really important. Keep engaging with them and showing them why you're a fit. And then anything else you can do with that list of things um, to improve your candidacy, like do as much as you can, because they are one that you can definitely move the needle. Okay. Ugh. How often do people get off the HBS wait list post-interview, and when do you find out? Like, I wish I had a good answer for that, but with, you know, with so many of these waitlist questions, like it just really depends. They're not giving data on how many people get off or how long it takes after the interview. If they, you know, some of these schools will tell you when you will find out, but if they don't, you're just kind of waiting until, you know, that July timeframe, which is usually the last possible moment in most cases that you could get off the wait list. I'm sorry, I don't have a more concrete answer for that. Um, General advice about the HBS wait list. I mean, they are definitely on the spectrum of not accepting very much new material. Um, so again, follow the instructions and put together like the strongest single update that you possibly can. Do not send any additional letters. They do not want them. Kind of same goes for GSB. I would, you know, those two are kind of similar in a lot of ways. Um, yeah. I so wish I had data on this. And they like it's just not out there for the most part. That's why most of my data is anecdotal. Um, Scholarship off the wait list. You can. I would say it's less likely, much less likely because they are, you know, usually awarding the scholarship money to the people that they know right off the bat they definitely want to come, unfortunately. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for attending this session. I wish you all of the luck and all of the patience on the wait list. And, you know, would love to work with any of you further on a customized approach to your waitlist strategy. Again, my discount code is here, and the link to my profile is in the chat and on the QR code. But best of luck, and thanks so much.